I didn't realize how small the house looked until I was standing on the front steps again, the key still warm from the lawyer's palm. Blue paint, flaking like fingernail polish. A brass doorbell that never worked unless you jabbed it with a pen. I kept thinking how Mom used to lean out of the window and yell, "Just come in already," and now here I was, hovering, like the house might exhale and push me back. "Are you going to open it?" my brother said, "or write a poem about it?" That's Mark, sarcasm, smudged sunglasses, pretending he's fine. I put the key in. It turned with this stubborn click, and when the door swung in, it dragged a little furrow through the hall carpet like always. The smell hit first: dust, lemon cleaner, a ghost whiff of Dad's pipe tobacco trapped in the woodwork. The living room was exactly as we left it after the funeral reception, casserole dishes lined up like parade floats on the dining table, the quilt folded over the couch arm, a cardigan slumped over the piano bench like someone had just stepped out of it. Only the quiet felt new. The house was ours now. That's what the email from the attorney had said. Per the will, the real property at 47 Renfield and residual assets are bequeathed equally to Charlotte and Mark. Me and Mark, 50-50. Like splitting a sandwich you didn't order. "I say we get a stager in by Friday," Mark announced, stepping over a cold pan of lasagna. "Hit the market while inventory's low." "Can we, maybe, just sit first?" I asked. My voice sounded like it did when I was 13 and asking if I could stay up late. "Time is money," he said. "You heard Norville. Probate, taxes, there's a clock." We stood in the hallway like two people in a museum, reading labels. The photos on the wall became artifacts: Mom at the beach in a floppy hat, Dad in his volunteer firefighter coat, me with a gap tooth, holding a fourth-grade science fair ribbon, Mark in his baseball uniform, already smirking. The thermostat still had the piece of masking tape where Dad wrote "Leave at 68, don't touch." I slipped my hand along the hall console, under the lace runner, and found the little ceramic dish where Mom kept orphaned buttons and pennies. The pennies were gone, but the old skeleton key was there, the one to the desk in the study. It had always been Dad's territory. He'd close the door when tax season came around, emerging with ink on his fingers and numbers in his eyes. When we were kids, stepping into the study felt like trespassing on sacred ground. Now the door was wider than I remembered. "I'll do upstairs," Mark said, and before I could say anything else he was already bounding up, calling over his shoulder, "Make a list of what we can donate." I watched him vanish. The house made those familiar pops and sighs that happen when you stand still enough to hear them, a baseboard contracting, the refrigerator's throat clearing, the soft tap of the kitchen faucet that never sealed. I walked into the study with the key pinched in my palm, trying not to scuff Dad's old rug with the bicycle wheel pattern. Dust danced in a slant of light. The desk was pristine in that disorganized way: stacks of manila folders, rubber bands stretched too far, a ceramic mug stuffed with pens that didn't work. The desk drawer resisted like it had a memory of being shut for good. When it gave, it was with a sigh that sounded like relief. Inside, a sheaf of envelopes bundled with twine, labels and Mom's looping cursive. Utilities. Taxes. Insurance. And one that just said "for the kids." My hand hovered. I could hear Mark upstairs, opening and closing closet doors. Hangers clacking like nervous teeth. I should have called him down. I should have been better. But grief makes you selfish in quiet, stupid ways. I untied the twine. The "for the kids" envelope was thin, the flap soft from being handled. Inside was a single index card, powder blue, with a grocery list on one side, milk, butter, parsley, and a note on the other in Dad's blocky print: "Don't let this house become a burden." "Charlotte?" Mark shouted. "You find anything?" I flipped the card over again, reading the line like it might rearrange itself. Burden. The word rattled around the study, bumped against the bookshelves, and slid down the glass of Dad's framed firefighter certificate. "Just paperwork," I said, and slipped the card back into the envelope. I told myself we'd go through everything together. I told myself we had time. Mark came down the stairs carrying a shoebox under his arm, the cardboard bulging at the corners. His shirt clung to him in patches, and his face had that smug gleam he always got when he thought he'd found something valuable. "Guess what was in the hall closet," he said, dropping the box onto the coffee table. Dust coughed into the air. "What?" I asked, still clutching the envelope of bills I hadn't told him about. "Coins. Dad's old collection." I knew he hadn't sold it. "There's silver in here, maybe even some gold pieces. This alone could cover the closing costs." He pried the lid off and started flipping through sleeves of nickels, quarters, and dull copper cents, each in its little paper square. I sat down across from him. The shoebox looked smaller than it had when I was a kid, when I wasn't allowed to touch it. Dad used to keep it on the highest shelf, pulling it down only on snow days, letting us admire the shiny, faraway years stamped into the metal. It was never about money back then, just about how history could fit into your palm. "Maybe we shouldn't sell them yet," I said. "Maybe we keep them for now." Mark laughed, short and sharp. "Charlotte, you want to hang on to every scrap like this as a shrine. We can't afford to be sentimental." The words dug under my skin. It's not about being sentimental. It's about thinking before we just liquidate everything. "Liquidate?" He smirked. "Listen to you. This isn't Wall Street, it's Renfield. You know what sentimental gets you? Debt. You want to keep the house? Fine. You pay the taxes. I'm not sinking a dime into it." I opened my mouth, then shut it again. The envelope in my lap seemed to throb. Burden. That word from Dad's note rattled around again, louder now. "Anyway," Mark went on, sliding the box shut, "we need to meet with the realtor this week. Norville said the faster we settle the estate, the less headache down the line." I nodded, even though something inside me wanted to push back, to scream that maybe the house wasn't just a line item. But Mark was already pacing, planning, talking about painting over the kitchen's avocado walls and ripping up the worn carpet in the den. Later, when he finally left to pick up his kids, I sat alone at the dining table. The casserole dishes were cold and greasy now, the foil lids caving in. I spread out the envelopes from the study, lining them like puzzle pieces. Utilities. Taxes. Insurance. Each was stuffed with receipts, late notices, bank slips. When I got to the bottom of the stack, I found something worse, a folder labeled mortgage. My chest tightened. The house wasn't free and clear like we thought. The balance scrawled in Dad's cramped handwriting was circled in red, $118,000. I pressed the folder shut, hard, like I could erase it by flattening the paper. My throat burned. Dad had written, "Don't let this house become a burden." But it already was. And Mark had no idea. I didn't sleep that night. The numbers from the mortgage folder burned themselves into the insides of my eyelids. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that red circle, $118,000, pulsing like it was alive. By morning, I'd convinced myself that maybe it wasn't so bad. Maybe the lawyer had just missed it. Maybe Dad refinanced and paid it down. Maybe I was overreacting. But when I got to the lawyer's office, folder clutched in my hand like evidence, Norville confirmed it with a sigh. "Yes, the mortgage was still active," he said, not even blinking. "It'll need to be settled from the estate proceeds." "Estate proceeds?" I asked. He looked at me like I was slow. "From the sale of the house, Miss Gallagher. There isn't much else. Your father left more liabilities than assets. That's not unusual." Not unusual. Like carrying 6 figures of debt to the grave was the same as leaving behind a stack of Reader's Digest magazines. When Mark came by the house later that afternoon, swinging a bag of takeout like this was just another project we were tackling together, I was already sitting at the dining table, the folder spread open. "Sit down," I said. My voice was shaking, but not from fear. From anger. "What's this?" He set the bag down, sniffing at the smell of lo mein. "Dad didn't own the house outright. There's a mortgage. A big one. I shoved the folder toward him. He flipped it open, skimmed, and then pushed it back like it was something sticky. So what? We sell the place, pay it off, and split what's left. What's left? I snapped. Mark, there won't be anything left. Between this and the taxes, we'll be lucky to break even. He crossed his arms. That's not my problem, Charlotte. We do what we have to do. You think I can just sit on this place and pay a mortgage? I've got my own bills, my kids' tuition. You don't get it. My hands were fists on the table. They lied to us. Mom and Dad made it sound like this house was going to be our inheritance, our safety net. But it's not. It's a sinkhole. Mark leaned in, his face flushed. Or maybe you're just mad you can't play house here. You wanted to turn this into your little memory palace, didn't you? Keep the quilt, keep the coins, sit in the living room crying about how things used to be, while I'm stuck carrying the financial reality. The words hit like slaps. Don't you dare, I said, my voice low. Don't you dare make this about me being sentimental. You act like you're the practical one, but all you care about is cashing out as fast as possible. You don't care about what this place meant. What it meant. He laughed bitterly. You mean how Mom cried in the kitchen when the collection agency called? Or how Dad used to yell when the bills piled up? Yeah, great memories. The silence after that was heavy. He grabbed the takeout bag, shook his head, and muttered, You always wanted the fantasy. I'm stuck with the facts. Then he slammed the door on his way out. I sat there, staring at the folder again. My parents hadn't just left us a house. They'd left us a minefield. And Mark and I were already standing on opposite sides of it. The next day I came back to the house early, determined to go through every drawer and closet before Mark showed up. If there was more debt hidden in there, I wanted to know about it before he used it as ammunition. But when I walked into the study, the desk drawers were already pulled open, papers scattered across the rug like a deck of cards thrown in anger. My stomach dropped. Morning, sis, Mark's voice came from the kitchen. He was leaning against the counter, sipping a coffee like he owned the place. You went through Dad's desk without me? I asked. You mean our dad's desk? He shrugged. I figured since you were hiding things yesterday, I'd take a turn. Heat flared in my cheeks. I wasn't hiding anything. I found the folder and I told you about it. Sure. After you had time to read it first. He smirked. Funny how that works. He pulled a crumpled envelope from his back pocket and tossed it on the counter. Found this in the bottom drawer. Credit card statements. They owed another 20 grand. Congrats. My breath caught. Oh my God. Oh your God, indeed. His voice was sharp. Face it, Charlotte, Mom and Dad were drowning. They left us scraps. And you know what? I'm not going down with their ship. I crossed my arms, trying to keep my voice steady. So what, you just want to dump the house tomorrow? Sell it for pennies just to wash your hands of it? Yes. His eyes were ice. Yes, exactly. The faster, the better. Before you get any bright ideas about keeping it. That cut deep. Because he was right, I had thought about keeping it, even with the debt. Some part of me still wanted to fix it up, make it ours, turn it into something good. I'm not signing off on a sale that cheap, I said. He slammed his coffee cup down so hard it splashed across the counter. Then you can buy me out. Come up with half the mortgage, half the taxes, half the debt. You think you can handle that? Or is this just another Charlotte fantasy where good intentions pay the bills? I stared at him, my pulse in my ears. I didn't answer. Thought so, he said, grabbing his jacket. But then, as he passed me in the hall, he leaned close and hissed, If you try to stall this sale, I swear I'll make sure you walk away with nothing. When the door slammed this time, the frames on the wall rattled. Mom's picture tilted sideways, her smiling face suddenly off kilter. I fixed it with shaking hands, and in that moment, I realized, this wasn't just a disagreement. This was war. Mark didn't waste any time making good on his threat. When I came back 2 days later with a tote bag full of cleaning supplies, the first thing I noticed was the shoebox of coins was gone. The top shelf in the hall closet was empty, the faint dust square where it had sat now bare. My chest went tight. "Mark!" I shouted, even though I knew he wasn't there. The echo just made the house feel hollower. I called his cell. He picked up on the second ring, his voice smug. "Looking for something?" "You took Dad's coins." "Our coins," he corrected. "And yeah, I did. I already had them appraised." "You had no right." "I had every right," he snapped. "You want to drag your feet, that's on you. I'm not letting the estate rot while you moon over family photos." I gripped the phone so hard my hand hurt. "You can't just sell things without my consent. We're supposed to split everything." "Relax. I'll cut you a check for half when it's done." "Unless you want to cover the mortgage instead?" He hung up before I could answer. I stood in the empty hall closet, shaking with rage. It wasn't about the coins, it was about what they meant. Dad's snow day ritual, the way his voice softened when he told us where each one came from. Now they were just numbers on a dealer's ledger. That night, I emailed Norville, the lawyer. I asked point blank if Mark could sell assets without my signature. His reply came in the morning: all sales of estate property must be agreed upon by both beneficiaries. If Mr. Gallagher has already liquidated items, that could present a legal issue. A legal issue. My heart pounded. I wasn't the type to threaten lawsuits, but if Mark wanted a war, maybe I needed weapons too. When I drove back to the house later that week, I found him in the living room, arms crossed, waiting for me. He must have known I'd gotten the lawyer's email. "You're going behind my back now?" he asked. I dropped my bag on the floor. "I'm protecting myself." "You stole from the estate, Mark." He laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. "Stole? You're unbelievable. You'd rather let the bank eat us alive than sell a box of coins." "At least I'm not sneaking around like a thief." His face hardened. "Careful, Charlotte. You're not the only one who knows where the skeletons are." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Maybe I'll tell Norville about how you sat on that mortgage folder for a whole day before you showed me." "You think that won't look shady?" "Maybe I'll tell him you're trying to keep the house for yourself." The room went cold. "You wouldn't," I whispered. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Try me." In that moment, it didn't feel like I was talking to my brother. It felt like I was staring down an enemy. And I knew I had to hit back, hard, before he buried me. The fight went public sooner than I ever imagined. It started at Sunday dinner with Aunt Marie. She'd insisted on hosting a nice meal to remember your parents, as if lasagna and garlic bread could glue Mark and me together. Her dining room was crowded with cousins, uncles, and the kind of family friends who aren't really family but show up anyway. Everyone was passing dishes, clinking glasses, talking about Mom's meatloaf recipe. And then Mark opened his mouth. "So," he said, spearing a sausage with unnecessary force, "guess who's dragging her feet on selling the house?" He didn't look at me, he looked at everyone else, his smirk wide and smug. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. "Mark." "No, really," he went on. "Charlotte wants to turn it into some kind of shrine. Meanwhile, the bank's just waiting to swoop in. She thinks memories are worth more than 6 figures of debt." The room went quiet. Aunt Marie set down her wine glass. "Debt?" she echoed, blinking. "What debt?" And just like that, the secret wasn't a secret anymore. I shot him a glare. "You want to do this here?" "Fine. Yes, Mom and Dad left a mortgage. Yes, it's a mess. But maybe we don't air it at dinner like it's gossip fodder." Mark leaned back in his chair, satisfied. They deserve to know what's really going on. You want to make me look like the bad guy, but all I'm trying to do is handle this responsibly. Sell the place, pay off what's owed, and move on. Uncle Rob cleared his throat. How much are we talking about? I hesitated. I didn't want to say it, but the silence was unbearable. 118,000. Plus about 20 in credit card debt. Gasps around the table. My cousin Lisa's fork clattered. Aunt Marie put a hand over her mouth like she'd just heard about a death, not a debt. Mark jumped in. Exactly. And instead of dealing with it, Charlotte's playing house. She's already calling lawyers behind my back. Head swiveled toward me. My cheeks burned. I called because you sold Dad's coin collection without even asking me. You're the one sneaking around. You mean saving us from drowning, he shot back. Somebody has to be the adult here. The cousins muttered. Aunt Marie shook her head, disappointed, like we were teenagers fighting over car privileges. You two need to stop, she said finally. Your parents would be ashamed. That word, ashamed, hung heavy. But Mark just crossed his arms, smug again. He'd wanted an audience, and now he had one. I sat there, shaking, staring at the red sauce congealing on my plate. This wasn't just a private battle anymore. Now the whole family knew, and every word we said would ripple through them like wildfire. And I could already see it in their eyes, sides were being chosen. It didn't take long after that dinner for the family to splinter. Aunt Marie called me the next morning, her voice sharp. Charlotte, just sell the house. Don't drag this out. Your parents wouldn't want more fighting. Later that day, cousin Lisa texted, honestly, I'm with you. Mark's being a jerk. Don't let him bully you. Even Uncle Rob chimed in, offering to mediate, which really meant telling me I was being emotional and Mark was being realistic. The house wasn't just ours anymore, it had become the family's favorite soap opera. Everyone wanted to weigh in, like our grief was a spectator sport. And Mark? He loved it. He'd send group texts about the latest updates, spinning the story to make me look stubborn and selfish. I finally snapped and fired back in the thread. Maybe if Mark hadn't stolen Dad's coins and tried to sell them behind my back, we wouldn't be in this mess. Within minutes, phones were buzzing. The group chat blew up. Half the family thought I was right. The other half said I was slandering my own brother. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, realizing something awful. It wasn't just me against Mark anymore. It was me against him and anyone he could drag onto his side. And he was winning. It happened faster than I expected. A thick envelope showed up at my apartment, my name typed neatly on the front. Inside, a petition filed by Mark's attorney. He was asking the court to force a sale of the house, claiming I was withholding consent and mismanaging the estate. My hand shook as I flipped through the pages. Mismanaging. Like I was some kind of criminal. I called him immediately. He answered on the first ring, smug. Got my little package? What the hell, Mark? You filed against me? You left me no choice, he said. You're standing in the way. The court will see it my way. You didn't even talk to me first. I tried talking, he snapped. You don't listen. Lawyers make people listen. I could feel the blood rush to my face. You're dragging this into court? Our parents just died, and you're already trying to sue me? They died in debt, Charlotte. And you're too blinded by nostalgia to deal with it. So yeah, I'm doing what needs to be done. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. The next day, I was in Norville's office, sliding the papers across his desk with trembling hands. He adjusted his glasses, scanned the documents, and sighed. This isn't unusual in probate disputes, he said. But you'll need representation. He's escalating. Representation? My voice cracked. Yes. You'll need your own lawyer. That word, lawyer, made my stomach sink. This wasn't just family drama anymore. It was official. It was on paper. And once the courts got involved, there'd be no going back. While I was scrambling to find a lawyer, I went back to the house one last time. Not to clean, not to argue, just to sit in the study and remember what it used to feel like when things were simple. That's when I noticed it. The rug under Dad's desk was crooked, just a few inches out of place. I tugged it straight, and my foot hit something hard. A floorboard gave with a hollow thump. My pulse quickened. I pried it up, hard hammering, and pulled out a metal cash box, scratched and dented, with one of Dad's old brass padlocks on it. The key dish in the hall. I ran to it, snatched the little skeleton key, and rushed back. It fit perfectly. Inside were 3 ledgers, thick with Dad's cramped handwriting. Each page was covered in numbers, arrows, notes. At first I thought it was just his usual obsessive record-keeping, until I saw the names of creditors. Not just the mortgage company and credit cards, but smaller, scarier ones. Personal loans. Shady-sounding agencies. And then, tucked between the ledgers, a single sheet of paper that made my stomach drop. Loan balance, $72,000. Cosigner, Mark Gallagher. I sat back hard, the box clattering against the floorboards. Mark. Dad hadn't just been drowning in debt, he'd pulled Mark down with him. Suddenly, everything clicked. The panic in Mark's voice when he talked about the mortgage. The desperation to sell. It wasn't just about the house. If the debts came due, Mark's own finances could implode. That's why he was rushing. That's why he was willing to drag me into court. And now I held the proof. When I heard his car pull up outside a few minutes later, I shoved the box back into the floor, heart racing. I didn't know if I was going to use this to destroy him, or save him. But one thing was certain, the balance of power had just shifted. I didn't tell Mark about the box right away. I needed to think. For once, I wanted to be sure I wasn't just reacting out of anger. But when I finally called him to meet me at the house, my decision was clear. He showed up tight-jawed, probably expecting another screaming match. If this is about court, save it, he said, kicking the door shut behind him. My lawyer says. Stop, I cut him off. My hand shook as I pulled the cash box from under the desk and set it on the table between us. I found this. His eyes flickered, recognition flashing across his face before he even opened it. You knew, I said softly. You co-signed one of Dad's loans. 72 grand. That's why you're desperate. Not just for the house, for yourself. For once, Mark didn't have a comeback. He just sank into Dad's old chair, his shoulders collapsing like the fight had drained out of him. Yeah, he whispered. I knew. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to see me as part of the mess. Dad begged me to help him. I thought I was saving him. Instead, I screwed myself. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel rage. Just exhaustion, and, unexpectedly, pity. Mark, you should have told me. His laugh was bitter. You'd have used it against me. I thought about that, then shook my head. No. Because it wasn't just you who got stuck with his choices. We both did. Silence stretched. For the first time since the funeral, it didn't feel hostile, just heavy. Finally, I slid the ledgers toward him. We can't undo what Mom and Dad did. But we can decide how we handle it. Together. He looked at me like he wasn't sure if I was serious. Together? Yes. We sell the house, but carefully. We don't rush. We don't cheat each other. We make sure what little is left isn't wasted. And when it's over, we walk away even. No more knives in the back. He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded, slowly. All right. Together. It wasn't a hug. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was a truce. And as we sat there in the study, the late sun slanting through the curtains, I realized something. The house had been a burden, like Dad warned. But maybe surviving it, together, was the real inheritance.